starting this a little bit earlier than anticipated. Can you hear me, those of you who just joined? Hi. Hi. Okay, so you can hear me. Yes? Yay or nay? Hi. Okay, listen, I'm going to start this. Thank you for telling me that. I'm going to start this by just reading. Now, this is our book, The Buffalo Hunter by the wonderful Stephen Graham Jones. It's kind of tough to pick a section to read in this book because the chapters are pretty long. So I picked a little section of a chapter, and it kind of is the part where the story sort of launches off from. Okay, so after I'm done reading, we'll talk a little bit about the book club, and I'll answer a couple questions that people had, and that'll be that. Okay, so in my book, this is page 49. I was 37 winters by then. Oh, one more thing before I start. I am sorry if I butcher, well, I will. I will butcher the pronunciations. I don't speak the language, and I looked it up, and I can't, it's hard for me to find pronunciations for things, so please forgive it. Okay. I was 37 winters by then, was too old to be making jokes, should have been grim with concern for all of the Pekuni, or at least with the seriousness of what we were doing. But I was never like Hunts to the side in that way, would always be the one trying the whitehorn milk just to see what would happen. While Tall Dog hooked his horse up to the front of the wagon, Peasy and me started dragging the bodies to the good wagon to carry them away just the same. All I was thinking about was the meat on the haunches of that prairie runner, boiling in an iron pot back at camp, because the only thing we were going to have to eat that night would be cold pemmican, and maybe, if Tall Dog thought to bring it, some belly fat. Instead of holding the hands of the dead Napaquans to drag them, I stole a leather thong from one of them, looped it over their wrists so I could keep from touching their white skin. When Hunts to the side saw how I was doing this, he shook his head side to side like I was a child, even though he was only 8 winters older than me. When he had all 11 of the dead Napaquans by the good wagon, Peasy reached up to pull its white cloth hood off so we could load the bodies in over the side, and then he, with all his many years' experience, was falling back into all the bodies and not even caring that he was lying in. This is when we saw it for the first time. "What?" Hunts to the side roared. His war club already at his hand, ready for the attack. I didn't even know he had the club, thought it was still on his saddle like mine. Tall Dog skidded up on his horse, his eyes every direction, and then, finally, he looked into the wagon, where Peasy and me were already looking, and his horse took a step back, pulling at the reins like it wanted to wheel around to run back to camp. I wish it would have. I wish we all would have gone with it, away from this place, this day, this whole winter. But it was like we were in one of your paintings, trapped in place, having to look at what was in the wagon, hissing at us like a real lion. It was the whitest Napaquan any of us had ever seen, with the blackest hair long on his head but nowhere else, and it was locked in a cage big enough for a tall man to sit in. The cage looked like it had been made from the round, square barrels of your long shooter guns, which we hadn't seen yet, but soon would. Hanging all over the cage with rawhide strings and bits of twisted-up cloth and braids of thin rope were dead man crosses, like you have up there behind where you talk. Gold and silver, wood and iron. But these were little, and there were so many that at first I thought they were toy birds all grabbing onto the bars and trying to fly away at once, except their wings were too square. "Ho!" Tall Dog said, more out of fear and bluff than to tell the thing to stay back. This thing in the cage looked up to Tall Dog on his big horse, probably thinking he was our chief. It's what I would have thought. The thing had a thin white face with intelligence to it, and at first I thought its chin and mouth were painted for ceremony, But then I saw that it was just that it ate like a sticky mouth, where it made a mess and then let that blood stay like it was proud of it. Wanted all the other four-leggeds to see what it could do. Its mouth looked like it was pushing out too far, bringing the nose with it. But I told myself that was just because the dried blood made it look that way. Its eyes were like mine, like I see you seeing, and its hair was hanging in its face, and it was naked, so we could see it was a man, or had once been a man. But it was no man, 3 persons. At first, it hissed at us, and then it swiped at the air over its head, like I am now. I understand it was swiping at Sunchief's light, weak through all the gray clouds. By pulling the white cloth hood over the wagon, we'd let that light in. "What is it?" Hunts to the side asked. His voice small for the first time ever, but mad too, because he didn't already know the answer. "Here," I said, and came back from my horse with my bow. I walked right up to the wagon, drew an arrow back, held it long enough that this thing looked down along the spine of that arrow back at me, which was when I shot it through the bars of the cage, right in the center of the chest, through this flat bone here. From that close, I couldn't miss. From that close, an arrow hits like a greased shooter. "Now we can see it closer," I said, lowering my bow, but not looking away from the cage. "Good," Tall Dog said. Peasy, trying to get his pride back from how the thing had startled him, stepped up into the wagon. But then he just stood there, looked down to whatever he'd stepped in. "Go," Hunts to the side said to him. "Good Stab already shot it." Tall Dog and me nodded that this was true, but we were also glad it was Peasy up there, not us. Peasy took his tall hat off, resettled it lower on his head, and stepped forward. The thing in the cage gasped all at once and sat up fast, pulled itself to the front bars, reaching with its claw fingers for Peasy, who backed off fast enough that his tall hat fell in front of him, too close to the cage for him to get it back. The thing didn't just have a bloody chin like a sticky mouth either. It had the teeth, too. Not as big as a black bear's, but not as small as big weasels. These teeth were snapping at Peasy, daring him to come get his hat. "What is it?" Hunts to the side said again, quieter to himself. We had no idea. The thing hissed like a real lion backed into a tree. And in my head, that was the first time I called him Pasatapi, the cat man, because he acted like one. I was going to read longer, but I think that's a good place to stop. This book is excellent, and there's a lot of layers within it that I think will be fun for us to discuss as this goes on. I did have a question from somebody about why I named it the Madwoman's Library, and I wrote some stuff down because I just wanted to give you guys a sense, because I think some people interpret it in different ways, but when I was a teenager, I was obsessed with Jane Eyre. And when I first started acting, my alias at hotels and stuff used to be Jane Eyre. And in Jane Eyre, there is a woman in an attic, and she's considered a mad woman. And she's the mad woman in the attic. And what I loved about this name for this book club is that it speaks to a story from my past, but also it speaks to what it is to be a woman and to the parts of us that we have had to keep hidden, the wild parts, the unruly parts, the unconventional parts, the parts of us that don't fit into the societies in which we live. And we've had to keep them, trapped in attics, so to speak. And that's where the title comes from. And I guess the other thing, doing these lives is so weird. I can't talk to anybody, and it's very strange. But the other part of this I just wanted to say is that I will come up with a list of questions for us to discuss the book with, and we'll either do it on Fable, which I think is the plan, because I think the structures are better on Fable than on Instagram. But if it's not there, it'll be on Instagram. Keith and I will figure out this whole situation later on. Oh, people have asked me questions. Let me just look. Okay, no, I'm not promoting a book. But yes, so that is the plan. I hope that you will join us. And if you don't know, if you're watching this and you don't know, we're starting a book club. I'm starting a book club, and it's called Mad Woman's Library. And there's an Instagram that you can go to. And this is the book that we're reading this month. So thank you so much for joining me. Is there anything else that you guys want to ask me? Hi, Anna. Oh, also, I said hi, Anna. When I hang this up, someone who knows this, will I have a button to press to save it? Will anybody know? Okay, I'm going to assume that I can save it. Oh, you're asking me why this book? This book because... Well, I love Stephen Graham Jones. I hadn't read this book, so I didn't know anything about it, really. We were looking for something horror, and this book has so much depth to it. We're looking at history in America. We're looking at Indigenous identity, resilience, trauma. We're looking at colonization, and also the rich history of vampire stories. What it means to live off of, constantly killing others. And it's just got so much to dig into. Is there anything else? I'll look at my question section. Would I consider writing a book? I'm working on a comic book with two of my friends, so that will come out, I think, in July. I won't be interviewing the authors every month because I don't think that I'll be able to talk to all of the authors. I don't know if they'll always be available, and I think some of them are probably no longer with us. So my intention would be to interview the authors if they have the time and have the interest, and if I have the time and all of that kind of stuff. Anything else? Anything else? I think I'm going to call it, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me, and we'll do this again soon. Okay. Bye.